I didn't go looking for it. It was just another Saturday at my dad's place. Early October, leaves turning bright, like the trees were celebrating something I couldn't see. The kind of crisp day that begs for sweaters and apple cider, not gut punches. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sorting through a chaotic pile of tax documents, receipts, old warranties, and mail that had never made it out of the junk drawer. This was our routine. Every fall, I'd come help my dad with his paperwork. My mom would wander in and out of the room, offering lukewarm coffee or random updates from the neighborhood Facebook group. Their house always smelled faintly of cinnamon, like someone had once baked something great, and the memory just stuck around. I found the envelope by accident. It was tucked between a property tax bill and a postcard from the cable company about upgrading their internet plan. No label, no fanfare, just a thick cream-colored envelope. Inside, it read Last Will and Testament of Douglas Harper. At first, I didn't even register what I was holding. Wills are the kind of thing you expect to be told about, not discovered between junk mail and expired coupons. I opened it because curiosity was louder than etiquette. I figured maybe it was the old draft from years ago, the one where everything was split evenly between me and Madison. It wasn't. 3 lines in, I stopped breathing. Every asset, the house, retirement accounts, his personal savings, even the old family heirlooms were designated to Madison. Not a single mention of me, no clause, no share, no explanation, just a small, almost laughable note near the end, underscore, we leave this with equal love for both our daughters, underscore. I reread that line until it blurred. Equal love. I sat there still and weightless, like someone had flipped the gravity off. I'd helped them cover the mortgage after Dad's back surgery, drove them to specialist appointments, fixed the printer more times than I could count. The first was the emergency contact, the after-hours tech support, the person they called when the thermostat blinked low bat. Equal love. Dad shuffled back into the kitchen a few minutes later, coffee mug in hand, asking if I'd found the tax documents. I smiled tight and dry like a mask made of sand and said, not yet. That night, I went home and stared at the ceiling until 2 a.m. I wanted to believe it was a mistake, or that maybe there was some side conversation I hadn't been part of. Maybe Dad had meant to update it. Maybe Madison was supposed to redistribute things later. Maybe they'd left me off because I had my life together. I clung to those excuses like driftwood. 2 days later, my phone rang just before lunch. It was Mom. Hey, honey, she said, voice sweet and slightly rushed. Sorry to bother, but we've hit a small snag this month. Could you send us about $1,200? Just until next week, it's for utilities and some car stuff. Without hesitation, I said, yeah, of course. I transferred the money while stirring half and half into my coffee. It wasn't the first time they'd asked, and I'd always helped. I didn't even question it. Later that night, Madison posted a story on Instagram, a selfie in a spa robe, flute of champagne in hand, captioned self-care weekend at Stonewater pre-holiday reset. Stonewater, a boutique spa up near Lake Minnetonka. Candlelit treatments, $300 facials. Not exactly budget living. I tapped through the story. Sushi dinner, a rose petal bath, designer slippers. She tagged Mom in one of the photos, a picture of their matching manicures. I stared at my phone so long the screen dimmed. That was where the utility money had gone. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just sat with it, the truth settling in my stomach like ice. They weren't just excluding me, they were using me. I was the AT mom, the dependable one, the adult who didn't need anything, the daughter they could forget in the will and still call for a quick transfer. I drove home from work the next evening in silence, radio off, hands tight on the steering wheel. The sun had already dipped behind the buildings, casting long shadows across the freeway. When I walked into my apartment, I went straight to the bookshelf. There, tucked in a black frame, was a photo of me and Madison as kids' pigtails, Halloween costumes, arms around each other. I cracked the corner of the frame last year, meant to fix it. I set it down. Then I did something I hadn't allowed myself to do in a long time. I let myself feel it. The hurt, the hollow, the brutal, aching disbelief, not because of the money, not even because of the favoritism, but because somewhere along the line, I'd been demoted from daughter to function, from family to background noise. I wasn't grieving inheritance. I was grieving invisibility. The following week, I stopped looking at my phone first thing in the morning. Notifications felt like landmines. Every buzz made my stomach clench, even if it was just the weather app reminding me it was going to rain. Again, I kept the work mask on. PowerPoint decks, budget forecasts, espresso breaks. My coworkers chatted about brunch spots and podcast recs while I nodded in all the right places. But internally, I was tracing a bruise that had no surface mark. It was a random Thursday when the final thread began to unravel. My cousin Ava texted, just a casual message. Hey, are you okay? I heard something weird about the will. Didn't want to pry. I stared at the screen for a long time. Ava and I weren't close, but we shared holiday stories and inside jokes from our teen years. She was one of the few relatives who didn't post Bible verses followed by mum links. I replied, simply, weird how. Her answer came quickly. I guess it was common knowledge. Aunt Jill told Mom that you didn't need anything and Madison was fragile. Fragile. There it was again. That word kept showing up like an unpaid invoice. Madison was fragile. I was strong. Like that meant I didn't bleed. Like strength was some infinite resource I owed them. That night, I went looking for proof. Not of the will, I already had that, but of the narrative. I pulled out old albums from my closet, dusted off USB dug through cloud backups. I wasn't sure what I was hunting for, maybe something to contradict the story I was starting to believe. Instead, I found patterns. In the photos, Madison was always at the center, hugged, touched, held, my mom's hand on her shoulder, Dad's arm looped around her waist, me smiling, yes, but just to the side, present but not part of the moment. I paused at a shot from my college graduation, my Ivy League cap angled slightly too far back, eyes squinting into the sun. I remembered the dinner that followed. Everyone clapped when Madison announced she'd gotten the second interview at a marketing firm. No one mentioned my full ride scholarship or the award ceremony I'd skipped to make it home in time. Back then, I told myself that was love. That being called the independent one was a compliment, a crown. Turns out it was a muzzle. Aim. The next day, while checking my account balances before paying rent, I saw it. A new withdrawal. $2,500. It wasn't from my personal account, it was from the joint one I'd opened for Mom back in 2017 when she'd struggled after knee surgery. I'd forgotten it even existed, meant to close it last year. Never did. The transaction note read, Wire transfer Bluestone Event Collective. I Googled it. High-end event planning, they did milestone birthdays, retirement parties, luxury engagement events. The silence in my apartment turned loud. I clicked back through my banking history and realized this wasn't the first recent withdrawal. There had been smaller ones in the past few months. I just hadn't noticed. Because I trusted them. I called the bank. Explained that I hadn't authorized the latest transfer. The rep was kind, but the answer was clinical. Because your mother is a joint account holder, the transaction is considered authorized unless fraud can be proven. I hung up. My hands were trembling, but not from panic, from something older, sharper. Betrayal, I was learning, isn't always loud. Sometimes it shows up with spot tags and party invoices. Sometimes it pretends to be normal. Later that evening, I scrolled through Instagram again, a habit I hadn't broken, even though it always made me feel worse. Madison had posted a throwback photo. Her caption read, with my rock, my everything, daggles. It was them, her, and my father standing in front of Lake Nokomis last summer, big smiles. Arm around her shoulders, the background a blur of sunlight and trees. But something was wrong. There was a strange edge of light on the left side, a jaggedness to the crop, the kind of artifact that shows up when someone edits out part of an image. I had the original on my old phone. I plugged it in, waited for it to boot. When I found the picture, it confirmed what I already knew. I had been in that photo. I'd been standing next to Dad, smiling, arms relaxed, sunglasses tilted crooked on my face. But in Madison's version, I was gone. Not just emotionally, not just from the will. Literally cropped out. I laughed, quietly. A stunned, bitter sound that didn't reach my chest, not because I thought it was funny, but because it was absurd how far someone would go to edit me out of my own life. The next morning, I went to work early, beat the coffee rush, avoided small talk. Around 10, my phone buzzed. It was Dad. I answered without thinking. About the will, he started like we were discussing the weather. It's more complicated than you think. I didn't say anything. Let the silence work. We just thought Madison needed more support. You've always been the stable one. You don't need this the way she does. Stable. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear, jaw clenched so hard I could feel it in my temples. That's your justification. I asked evenly. It's not about love, Elena. No, I said. It's about loyalty, mine, yours, and who you think deserves what. He paused, maybe searching for a line that would soften the blow. We do love you, honey. I almost laughed again, but this time it would have come out jagged. We're done here, I said. I hung up before he could respond. No screaming, no drama, just gravity. I wasn't waiting for them to see me anymore. Because they had. They'd looked straight at me and chosen not to. The day I stopped waiting for an apology was the day I started building my case. Not just a legal one, though, that came later, but a truth-shaped archive of everything they wanted buried. Dates, screenshots, bank records, voice memos. I didn't collect it out of spite. I collected it because I needed to know the betrayal wasn't just in my head. And because I knew what was coming. It started with a letter, hand-delivered to my office, cream envelope, thick cardstock, formal typeface with the logo of a firm I recognized from the corner of town where all the upscale lawyers work. Inside, a cease and desist from my mother. A warning about sharing sensitive family matters in malicious public spaces. My crime? A Facebook post. Not a rant, not angry, just a quiet, plain statement of facts. For years, I supported my family financially, emotionally, logistically. I was written out of the will without a word. A loan was opened in my name without my consent. I've been silent for too long. That ends now. No names, no dragging, but enough truth, apparently, to rattle them. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just scanned the document, saved a copy to my hard drive, and filed the envelope under defense. Literal labeled neat, neat, neat. That evening, I sat by the window with a glass of wine and opened my voice memo app. I hit play on the last conversation I had with my mother, the call she tried to spin as loving. It was calm, yes, but unmistakable. You wouldn't have agreed to help, so I did what I had to. It's not forgery, it's family. Families help each other. I saved the file with a timestamp and backed it up twice. The next day, the smear campaign started. First, a comment thread in the Fort Collins Community Moms group. When children turn on their parents for a few dollars, it's just sad. I recognized the name Mrs. Kenna, who once taught Sunday school and braided my hair for a bake sale when I was 8. Then a local church bulletin included a prayer request for the Elmore family enduring public attacks from within. Within, that word made me nauseous. Madison reposted one of her stories with a caption, "No matter what, I'll always choose love over greed." And that was the play frame me as ungrateful, unstable, vengeful. Then came the call from Nia, a college friend. "Did you really say that stuff about your mom on a podcast? It's been going around." I blinked. "What podcast?" She forwarded me the audio. It was my voice, or sort of, but the rhythm was wrong. The phrases clipped together, words lifted from different conversations, spliced to sound like I called my mother a manipulative narcissist and an embarrassment to the concept of motherhood. I never said either. I pulled up my phone backups, found the original call, compared the waveforms. It was doctored. Badly. But enough to make people doubt. They weren't just trying to silence me. They were trying to discredit me. I could have posted a rebuttal, made a dramatic video, ranted on every platform. But I didn't. Instead, I opened a new Google Doc. I titled it _timeline estate financial abuse _. And I started writing. April, open joint account for mom's medical expenses. July, first unknown withdrawal. October 4th, discovered revised will. October 7th, fund transfer from joint account to luxury spa. October 11th, phone call confirming intent. October 12th, deepfake audio surfaces. October 13th, cease and desist delivered. I uploaded photos, scanned documents, annotated emails. It wasn't a revenge file. It was protection. Clarity, proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I was finally seeing clearly. A week later, an email arrived from Thorne Klein, the estate lawyer who'd handled our family paperwork for years. His subject line was simple. concerning recent amendments to your father's will. My pulse kicked up. Thorne had always been kind to me, sent a card when I graduated, once helped me understand power of attorney docs over coffee and oatmeal cookies. The message was short. I have reason to believe the latest version of your father's will contain inconsistencies. Please review the attached documents and call me. There were 2 files, one from a year ago, a clean, logical split of assets, my name included. Madison receiving the bulk, but still I was there. The second, dated 3 months later, right after Dad's hospitalization from pneumonia. That version had only Madison. Same header, same layout. But the signature, it didn't match. The old one was fluid, consistent. The new one was shaky, oddly spaced, and missing the official county watermark on the notary stamp. Even the ink looked fresh. The date was from a weekend Dad hadn't been able to hold a fort. My breath caught in my throat. I forwarded everything to my attorney with no message except, please review, something's off. Later that afternoon, I met Thorne at his office. It was warm, full of dark wood furniture and soft yellow lighting that smelled faintly of lemon oil and ink. I can't advise you unless retained, he said, but off the record. This looks like coercion. And under Colorado law, an estate transfer like this without spousal co-signature is a red flag. I nodded slowly. So what happens now? He exhaled. Well, an anonymous complaint has already been filed with the probate review board. He didn't say who sent it. I didn't ask. Because it didn't matter how the door opened. The truth had walked in. That night, I didn't draft a new post. I didn't call anyone. Instead, I lit a single candle and opened a blank journal page. And I wrote one line. When they erased me from the will, I rewrote myself into the truth. I closed the journal. My apartment was quiet. The city lights blinked gently beyond my window. For the first time in weeks, the silence didn't hurt. It held me. 3 weeks passed. The snow that had once muffled the streets melted into slush, then dried into faint salt lines on the curbs. Even the air felt lighter, like the whole city had exhaled. I didn't follow the probate case in real time. No court drama, no live updates, no inbox alerts. I didn't want to know every detail. I only needed to know the truth was moving not fast, but forward. Thorne sent me a summary. Douglas Harper has been summoned to clarify inconsistencies regarding estate documentation. Jillian Harper declined to provide a statement. No apology, no retraction, just silence, which somehow rang louder than a confession. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt clean. Not polished, not healed. Just no longer stuck in the muck they left me in. That morning, instead of diving into email or spreadsheets, I slipped on my coat and walked 2 blocks to a corner cafe. Hadn't stepped inside in years. The kind with chipped tile floors, a fog window that always caught the morning light, and a bell above the door that still jingled like an old memory. Marta, the owner, looked up from behind the counter and blinked. Helena, she said, like my name surprised her in her own mouth. Where have you been hiding? I smiled, rediscovering air. She chuckled and poured me a cup of black coffee without asking. On the house, you always tip too much. I took my mug to a table by the window and watched the people pass, bundled toddlers, couples walking with canvas grocery bags, a teenager in a puffer jacket laughing into her phone. Life moved. It didn't ask if you were ready. It just went. I opened my laptop, not for work, not for emails, for writing. I hadn't touched my old blog since grad school, back when I thought I might become a columnist or a memoirist, or at least someone whose words mattered. I titled the post, Some Truths Don't Need an Audience, Just Air to Breathe. And then I wrote about what it feels like to grieve people who are still alive, about the sharpness of being unseen, about how betrayal doesn't always scream sometimes, it just slowly edits you out of every photo. I didn't name anyone, didn't list dates, didn't dramatize. It wasn't about burning the house down. It was about building one of my own. That afternoon, I was back at my desk in the office sorting through client files when my assistant buzzed. There's someone here to see you. No appointment. Name's Mrs. Delaney. I paused. From Harper Street? Yep, said she doesn't want to take much time. I walked out to the reception area. She stood there in her lavender coat, hands folded over a black leather purse, eyes clear but tired. She used to live next door to my parents. I hadn't seen her in years. You probably don't remember, she said, but you helped me save my home. All that mortgage paperwork I didn't understand. You walked me through it, sat at my kitchen table for 3 hours. I did remember. Barely. I'd done it because she asked, because she mattered, because it was the right thing. I never forgot that, she said, voice low but certain. Thank you. She was gone in 10 minutes. But when the door closed behind her, something cracked open in my chest, not pride, not validation, something softer, something like peace. That night, I got home to find a small cream envelope in my mailbox, no return address, my name in soft blue ink. Inside, one line, handwritten, "You didn't deserve any of it. I'm sorry, Ava." No explanation, no excuses, just truth. I folded the note carefully and slid it into the back of my journal, not to forgive, not to forget, but to witness. Later, I turned off every screen in my apartment, lit one candle, sat by the window with my hands in my lap and my feet tucked under me like I was finally home. I opened my journal one last time and wrote, "I am not the forgotten daughter. I am the one who remembered myself." The room was still, but for the first time, it wasn't empty. Because I wasn't either. Outside, the streetlight flickered once and held steady. My reflection stared back from the window, tired but whole. They weren't coming to rescue me. They weren't going to change the story. But I could. I already had. When your family tries to define your worth by what you give, how little you need, or how long you can stay quiet, walk away with your dignity intact. Sometimes silence isn't strength. Sometimes it's just fear dressed as loyalty. And when you finally speak, they won't know what to do with the sound. But you will. You'll call it freedom.